2 years ago, I made a video on Trails localizations. Not even in my most optimistic moments in that video did I think we'd be where we are today. Just in the last year, since my most recent Falcom overview video, here is all that has happened. Trails Through Daybreak 1 released in the West. Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus released for Switch with a new localization in the West. Ys Memoir The Oath in Felghana was announced for a Western release and has now come out. Kai no Kiseki has released in Japan. Trails Through Daybreak 2 was announced for a release that is coming up or already passed based on the timing of this video. Ys Memories of Celceta is getting a Switch port in Japan. Tokyo Xanadu of Kyoto, not the official title, has been revealed. Ys vs. Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga is getting an official release in the West. Ys 10 Nordics released in the West, and almost immediately afterwards came the announcement of the updated re-release Ys 10 Proud Nordics. Oh, and yes, the really big one. The Trails in the Sky remake is not only coming this year, but will be the first ever simultaneous worldwide release of a Nihon Falcom game. That's just the game side of things, as there is also the death of Nihon Falcom founder and first president Masayuki Kato. All of that and even more is what I will be talking about in this video. And at this rate, we very well could be staring at an equally long list for next year. Let's start with what started this video project 2 years ago though. The race for the West to catch up to Japan when it comes to Trails. As of right now, the only recent Falcom game released in Japan without a Western release scheduled is Kai no Kiseki. That's right. Come the release of Trails Through Daybreak 2, we are a single game behind Japan. A monumental achievement that could get even better this year if, as I suspect, Kai no Kiseki comes to us in late 2025. The complication is, of course, the release of Ys 10 Proud Nordics, but that project shouldn't take NISA nearly as long to handle since they already did most of the work for the regular Ys 10 Nordics release in 2024. An unexpected element in the catch-up process, though, is Falcom pursuing multiple partnerships with localization companies. While there have been the occasional past collaborations, such as for Tokyo Xanadu and Access Games, Falcom is usually stuck with a single company to work with, and given the stated plans for the company to release multiple games in a year moving forward, that was always going to be a steep ask for a single localization company to commit to. Enter the new solution, where we have confirmed this year the standard release of Trails Through Daybreak 2, localized by NIS America, the simultaneous worldwide launch of Trails in the Sky First Chapter, localized by Gung Ho Entertainment, the truly unexpected release of Ys vs. Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga, localized by new company Refint Games, and Ys Memoir The Oath in Felghana by Xseed Games. I don't think this is an exception. I wouldn't be surprised that having established or re-established working relationships with these various companies, if the Ys Memories of Celceta Switch port came via Xseed, Kai no Kiseki via NISA, Kyoto Xanadu via Axis, Future Sky remakes via Gung Ho, and who knows for Refint Games, maybe some even older unlocalized releases. That makes me all the more optimistic that this is the year the West catches up to Japan for Falcom games and stays caught up. The big reason for this, though, is of course the first instance of a simultaneous worldwide release. Today, this is very commonplace among the industry, but I remember those watershed moments for other companies and their series. Fire Emblem getting its first simultaneous worldwide release with Three Houses, Persona/SMT with Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Persona 5 Tactica, Atelier with Atelier Ryza 3, technically a day behind, but it's close enough. The big thing for all those series that finally got their worldwide releases together is that they didn't go back afterwards. We got Fire Emblem Engage and Persona 3 Reload at the same time as Japan. We will get Atelier Yumiya at the same time. Falcom isn't Nintendo, Atlus, or Gust, but now that Trails in the Sky the First has done it, more should follow. There are reasons to regard the remake as a possible exception because a lot of translation work has already been done via the original release, but simply having Falcom share the scripts early enough to pull this off is a huge change. I truly think that if NISA wasn't busy trying to catch up on Trails with this system, they could have done a simultaneous release for Ys 10. Maybe they'll pull it off for Proud Nordics, but the main point is, the day we thought may never come has indeed arrived. Falcom has made a huge cultural shift in their tactics when it comes to localization, and the possibilities only open up from here because Falcom finally took that big step away from an outdated tradition. Something else that Falcom is taking a big step towards is the plan that Kondo has been hinting at for years, the plan to release multiple new games a year. While you can argue and quibble over Ys 10 Proud Nordics, it is definitely a more significant release than the upgraded ports such as Ys Memoir Oath and Felghana, and comes in the same year as Trails in the Sky First Chapter, with Tokyo Xanadu of Kyoto waiting over the horizon. For all the grains of salt and rolled eyes Kondo's statements have received over the years, more and more of them are coming true. Crossbell is now a worldwide release. Remaking Trails in the Sky is on the docket. Closing the Gap is happening. At a certain point, the plan actually came into focus. He still has no idea how far we are into the Trail series, but for pretty much every other claim Falcom and/or Kondo has come out with in recent years, they have also come through. That means those partnerships overseas, whether that's in Asia with Clouded Leopard or in North America with NISA, Gung-Ho, Exceed, and whoever else, are all the more important. Global appeal and sales has likely been a big reason Falcom has expanded its ambitions as of late, and in order to fulfill those ambitions, they need stable partners because Falcom West is still very unlikely to happen. Falcom is still a very small company relative to most of the others, and they do get by frequent reuse of assets, but we could be seeing a step towards more ambition even on that front. I wouldn't be surprised if Falcom leverages success, if they do achieve it, into a bigger company where they can do stuff like putting veteran staff on Trails and Ys, while focusing their newer staff on creating games like the Tokyo Xanadu game that they're trying to do right now. Now, another important relationship for Falcom of late, and going forward, is with Nintendo. More and more Falcom games are getting Switch ports. Ys 10 specifically was developed for the Switch first. The Trails in the Sky remake got its announcement via a Nintendo Direct, and with the Switch 2 around the corner and Nintendo themselves acknowledging growing their relationship with Falcom, Falcom is in a good position to capitalize on that partnership. What does that mean in the long term? It is hard to say, but Falcom fans who are also Switch owners are likely very happy with this news. That's the overview I see of the plans Nihon Falcom has in the West and in Japan, but there's so much more to go into, so I want to go to talk about each one of Trails, Ys, and Xanadu in their own sections and dig deeper. Starting with Daybreak, which at this point, I feel bad for, because Daybreak was supposed to be the big new arc for Trails and bring in new fans for its Western release like Cold Steel did. That does not appear to have happened. I'm not saying Daybreak did poorly, but the numbers are not at Cold Steel levels, and now with Sky Remake coming, the spotlight has shifted to that. Daybreak is still very important and influential for the series, as it is clear this hybrid combat system is the future for the Trails series, as evidenced by Sky Remake having it as well. We have Daybreak 2 coming very soon, but I don't think that's going to be enough to bring the fan attention back to Calvert. Kai no Kaseki has a better chance, I think, because it is not a setup game like the first two Daybreak games, but it's all going to be about timing from here on out, I would think. And unfortunately, the timing does not seem to be working out in Daybreak's favor. As for the Sky Remake, this game has the potential to be an instant success, a huge hit. Thus far, every move that I have seen from Falcom and Gung-Ho indicates the seriousness with which they are taking that potential. They've made sure it's on perhaps the three biggest platforms it could be on to hit the biggest audience: Switch, PS5, and PC. Each trailer has shown off particular things that people have been waiting to see, plus some extra details for us to dive into. There's still plenty to see, such as voice cast, further localization details, what they are adding into the game, showing off some of the other locations in the game, but for now, things are looking good. I am also optimistic that Sky Remake will prove to be enough of a success to greenlight Sky Second Chapter Remake at the very least. The third is always going to be the tough one. I hope they do it, of course, but the first two are what I would call the essential remakes. And if I'm allowed to get a little bold in my hopes and desires, I hope Trails in the Sky blows all the sales figures out of the water and turns Falcom into a bigger overall company, so they can realize some of those ambitions, perhaps even sooner than they are currently planning. The one recent concern that has come to our attention, though, is not on Falcom's side of things, but Gung Ho's. Recently, shareholders at the company released a report targeting the president's high salary relative to other Japanese gaming company presidents' salaries. It's about $1.7 million a year. Western gaming companies, can you follow that lead instead of giving Andrew Wilson $25 million a year in compensation? And no significant recent hits since Puzzle and Dragons. I do think that may in part be why Gung Ho has been taking on projects such as the Lunar Remaster, Sky Remake, and the recent partnership on a Disney RPG, so I hope those games succeed and help Gung Ho stay in the game. The last thing Falcom and the Sky Remakes need is uncertainty from their development and publishing partner, but Gung Ho, like Falcom, has strong monetary reserves, so I wouldn't be too worried on the overall sustainability of the company, at least in the short term. While Trails continues to have attention lavished on it, it's important to look at Ys as well. Ys 10 Nordics released in the West last year, and then we got the announcement of Ys 10 Proud Nordics for Japan. No Western announcement as of yet. Whew, boy, did this one set off some people, and I understand why. When Falcom has previously done these sorts of releases, it was with very clear ideas of expanded content and came when shifting between consoles, such as the transition from the PS Vita to the PS4. Ys 8 and Tokyo Xanadu benefited greatly from that. So I know Falcom can make something worthwhile out of Proud Nordics, but based on what has been said so far, it doesn't seem as transformative as Ys 8's expanded content, let alone Tokyo Xanadu's. I hope to be proven wrong, of course, and I'm definitely looking forward to the Mana Actions and the Mana Ride races, but I'm still reserving judgment overall. The other point when it comes to Ys, though, is the fact that they're going back to the previous game instead of looking to the future. At this point, I'm a little concerned that Falcom doesn't really know what they want to do with Ys. For Trails, I think the transition to the new combat style really reinvigorated the desire to work on that series, and unfortunately, Ys doesn't seem to have gotten that same breath of fresh air from the combat shift to the cross-action system. That's just me suspecting and predicting, but I still really would like them to continue moving forward, whether that's Ys 11 or the Ys 5 remake, but we shall have to see. We know there's other Ys games coming. We just need to see how Proud Nordics turns out and what they have planned next. Now, Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus releasing for Switch wasn't a hugely notable development of the past year, at least relative to everything else that happened, but I still find it interesting to think about in more detail for a couple reasons. One, Axis Games going for a new localization for the Switch release. That's quite the investment for a simple port of a game, and while Ys 8 also got a new localization after it was released, that was due to the first one being terrible. Axis Games wasn't winning any awards for its original work, but it certainly wasn't ripped apart the way NIS America was for Ys 8. Why invest that amount of money then into the new localization for the port? Well, that connects to the second part of the Tokyo Xanadu news, and that is the release of a sequel happening sometime next year, presumably. I see the new localization as Axis Games auditioning for the rights to the new game. Last year I wasn't sure if Axis still had interest in continuing to work with Falcom, but this move makes me think they do. The question is, does Falcom have the same desire? Falcom has always been, let's say, mercenary with the rights to their games, so Axis Games certainly could be outbid, but all else being equal, it makes sense to go to those with experience with the original Tokyo Xanadu's, so the new localization might turn out to be a savvy move. Now though, it is prediction time about what the West will be getting in the next couple years and what Falcom is developing. Starting with what Falcom is developing. Like last year, they released a list of ongoing/upcoming projects. Kai no Kaseki released last year in September. Trails in the Sky First Chapter will likely be this year's September release. Tokyo Xanadu new project then moves to 2026, either as the main project or one of two main projects. Then we have some intriguing other options. One unannounced project not associated with any of the other ones on the list. The Switch ports for Daybreak, Daybreak 2, and Memories of Celcena, a PS5 port, along with a PS5 and PS4 port of Memoir Oath and Felghana, Ys 10 Proud Nordics coming in 2025, a Trails project, and an Ys project. The unannounced PS5 port is intriguing as there are several options for that one. It could be East Memories of Celceta since Felghana did the Switch then PS5 release as well. It could be one of the Cold Steel games. 3 and 4 were ported by NISA to PS5, but not for Japan as well. Someone in the comments of an article also brought up The Legend of Nayata as an option. I'm leaning towards Celceta, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's any of the others I listed instead. The unannounced Trails project is likely Kaino Kaseki 2. And the unannounced East project is likely either the East 5 remake finally or East 11, which leaves the one unannounced project with no additional information about it. A new IP? Maybe. A returning IP like Zwei, Brandish, or Guruman? Also possible. All of those were included in Falcom's graphic about IPs they own, but I lean more towards it being an entirely new IP. The ceiling for a new IP is likely greater than for an older one returning, and Falcom is definitely thinking about the future and the end of the Trails series as we know it, and they need to figure out what they're going to do next when their staple series runs out of games. What does this mean for the Western release schedule? Well, Trails Through Daybreak 2 has already been released, same with Memoir, Oath, and Felghana. Next up, we have Trails in the Sky First Chapter and East vs. Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga. That's already a busy 2025, but I'm sticking with my prediction that either Kaino Kaseki or Proud Nordics also come out in 2025. I don't think both of them are going out, but at least one of them. If they don't, then I expect them both in the first half of 2026. East Memories of Celceta's Switch port coming west would make sense as well, but I don't expect that until 2026. Which would leave us off starting 2026 staring down the release of Tokyo Xanadu's new project and finishing up whatever NISA didn't get to in 2025 of Kaino Kaseki and Proud Nordics. Therefore, I think by the middle of 2026, the West will have completely caught up to Japan when it comes to Trails releases. A monumental accomplishment I definitely didn't think would happen that quickly when I made my initial 2023 video on Trails localizations. There will still likely be speed bumps and concerns. The journey to get here hasn't been smooth, so I don't expect the completion of it to be either, but it's exciting. About the only reason that I think the releases would be delayed is we've gotten to the point with the Falcom project saturation in the West that it's difficult to time your release not to be competing with one of the many other Western releases that are going on. It's honestly a pretty good problem to have though. Last year felt like a big turning point for the West when it comes to Falcom localizations. After the rush to finish Crossbell and start making progress towards Calvard on the Trail side of things, 2024 would prove to be the year to show if that momentum could be maintained. Between Daybreak and East 10, plus the early 2025 Daybreak 2 release, I think that the momentum was indeed maintained, which brings about 2025 as the year where it all comes to fruition. The possibility of finally catching up on Trails, the definite simultaneous worldwide release of Sky the First Chapter, the unexpected projects coming. 2025 is the year of potential. The year that many of us fans dreamed would someday come but kept pushing that vision off for more and more years. It's an exciting time to be a Falcom fan, and to know there are riches in store for us going forward thanks to the hard work of those at Falcom, NIS America, Xseed, Axis, and Refint Games. How are all of you feeling about 2025 with regards to Falcom games? Anyone share my optimism of a 2025 Kaino Kaseki release? Let me know in the comments, show your appreciation by liking the video, and subscribe for more Falcom and RPG goodness coming our way. Have a great day, and happy gaming.